All right, hello everyone. Here we're back for a tutorial here. Go ahead and get my pen ready. And what I'll usually do for this hole in terms of priority would be Sniper 8. You're really going to need a good deal of backspin for this one, for this shot that you're going to see. So Guardian 2. So that's one of the good things about the Guardian is it progresses so fast to have that high backspin. And aside from that, let's see, I would say at least Hammerhead 6. So that's probably not even going to be a good option. And similarly with, you'll probably almost never be able to bring Hammerhead 6 here. I mean, it'll take so long for it to progress. You'll probably be through this tour. And same with Cat. Cat need to be a 6 to play this shot. Now, the way that I used to play it, and you see it on my channel, is I would land it about here and curl it over. Ever since the new update, there's a much more consistent way to play it, and that is the actual rough. I tried to, let me erase that real quick, zoom in. I tried to land right about here, right in between the two surfaces, or very close. Try to land on the north rough surface just by an inch or two to try to keep myself protected away from the rough edge and catching the fairway. And basically crank up my backspin and use maybe just a little bit of curl to get it to just kind of rough bump through here and shoot right towards the hole. I find that it rolls through very consistently, as opposed to the old. It would kind of glitch off of this, and sometimes half the time it would roll through and go 10 yards behind the hole. It seems to always run consistent towards the hole. The only thing that you might mess up is you might mess up the land zone, and if you mess up the land zone, you might just barely trickle out of the rough and not get it to the hole. But with some practice, you can get very good at this shot and be able to pull it off. It's a lot easier than that red X that you see drawn there. So that's the reason that you pretty much see, since the new update, that I'm going to be using this this method pretty much exclusively. And in terms of my backspin, what I'll use is pretty much across the board for the Sniper 8. I'm just going to kind of max it out. I think it's very close to about 6.5. So you'll see that 6.5. Whoops. 6.5, 6.5, 6.5. Pretty much always use this 6.5. The only time I might start to back off is, let's just say, maybe 6.25, just in the case that you start to get these headwinds. Now, these headwinds actually become very, very challenging. If you don't have a power 3 ball, it might not even be possible for you to really cover yourself for all these winds. The headwinds are going to be the really tricky ones. Also, what's going to be hard is when you adjust down this hill, for instance, or up into the sand, it kind of makes the adjustment just a little bit wonky with the way that it's going to work. So it might not always apply that you can always do this. But let's just say, let's go to the side wind case real quick. And let's talk about this. So for side wind, what I'll pretty much use is maybe max plus 10. So an extra 10% for the side wind. Similar with the tailwind, I'll do the same thing. The problem comes in that when you're doing this adjustment is the varying of the surfaces. You have to be very careful, and especially with tailwind, you start to close this hill off. Okay, so what will end up happening is as you pull up the hill, you start to make that lower end where you need to hit that bottom part of the hill, it starts to get a little bit more closed and it gets a little bit tougher to hit because you're kind of changing the way that the ball comes in down over the hill, and it creates kind of a smaller margin of error to where you could potentially land on the fairway. With this headwind, it's going to be a lot tougher. In fact, this side wind could even be, in some cases, maybe as much as plus 20% for this side wind. With this headwind, it's going to be significantly more. So I might use max plus 30%, and it could be as much as plus 50%. So it's going to be somewhere in that range of 30 to 50%. Just depends on how big it gets. And that's kind of where the problem comes in, because max plus 50%, for example, especially on, say, a 10 mile per hour wind, it's going to be a substantial ring adjustment. You might not have those 15 rings to go, and you might have to go into max OP. So one of the things that I recommend for this tour, which is nice because it's Tour 7 and the winds are, they've moved this to a lower tour, which kind of helps for this hole. Because especially with Kingmaker ball, for example, or even Navigator or Titan or whatever, the odds of you getting a very large wind are reduced, which is nice. So, you know, the winds that are kind of like 5-6 miles per hour, they're going to be much more manageable to only go 7.5 rings, for example. So if you get 5 in the face, it's going to be very manageable. You'll be able to still go that about almost 8 rings. And that's, you know, the biggest thing is guys, they'll, and more so about this over adjustment, it's kind of the hill target that you're landing on. It causes the ball to land shorter than it necessarily should. So since it's landing shorter, you really need to be careful and go an extra adjustment to make sure that you get it to land that longer distance, because otherwise these spins, they'll just barely trickle out of the rough. And also keep in mind that it's probably going to require a little bit of curl, because where you land right around here, it's going to need to kind of go up this way to roll back down towards the hole. So what I'll usually do is maybe about 30 curl in this direction. So if this is my plane right here, you know, I might set my curl over to about half here outside the shot circle. So good luck with this hole, guys, and catch you guys on the next one.